This is the 103rd episode of the Effective Executive podcast and YouTube channel. And this week I have titled this kind of tongue in cheek 8 Reasons You May Suck as an Executive. And some of the people that have gone through my training or intervention might be a better word at their organization. These things kind of stand out in my mind when I talk to people. So let's get started in the list. It's not a comprehensive list, but I think I hit upon some of the big ones, and there is some overlap in some of these things. I get it. But that may be because I'm trying to emphasize certain things. Okay, so number one, you lay off people without feeling any pain as an executive yourself. In other words, every leadership, I don't do leadership training per se, has something in it about empathy. And, you got to be an empathetic leader. And, the way you develop empathy is through action. And your actions are going to carry over to the people that stay versus the future. So why not be an executive or a group of executives that does empathy through their actions? So what do I mean by that? Well, I've done an episode before, and I'll put a link to it below, on things that you can do before you lay people off. Talked about cutting the dividend. We talked about eliminating bonuses and cutting executive salaries before you start laying people off or asking any of the rank and file to initiate any pain. That way you've demonstrated to people that, look, this is something that was outside of our control if it was, and if it wasn't, then you need to own up to that. But you can't just wash your hands of saying, we made a mistake, but we're going to lay off, 30% of our workforce, or the economic conditions have changed. If you want to get the best people in your organization, do empathy through your actions, which is taking some of the pain first, sharing, kind of what's going on in the organization and communicating that out. So that's the first one. And to me, it's a big one, especially right now. We're only at the beginning of what's going to be a very painful next year as far as layoffs and things of that sort. Number two, you micromanage, and I've hit upon this multiple times in many videos, and there's a lot of ways that you can micromanage. It's typically not, although I've seen it, where you personally are like just looking over everybody's shoulder and, course correcting them at every step, those types of things. But that's usually not how it happens, especially at the executive level. They'll do it through others. And sometimes it's through others unintentionally, saying, here's the type of thing, and the person that's getting the order micromanages to that particular order. And then another one is through mandates, the measures that you've put together, the policies, the rules, the scripts, all that stuff are all kind of ways that executives micromanage their employees. So it's not just looking over somebody's shoulder, but that does happen. Not as quite as much of that I see. It hasn't really changed that much, but there are definitely micromanagers out there. It's control. I got to control. Third thing, they pit people against each other, and I really hate this one. I see this on occasion. It's not, doesn't happen a lot, but it's very painful when you do. Sometimes it's an executive, giving somebody overlapping. I want you to accomplish this, and giving it to another person, the same thing, without telling each other. I just wanted to see how this creates competition, and this goes against synthetic thinking and systems and a lot of the components having to work together in an organization. You don't need competition within your organization. There's enough outside of it. So pitting people against each other, bad idea. Using fear, and this is a big one, and it plays in a lot of different ways. You threaten their pay, you threaten their position, and this can be done through performance appraisals, which is one of the reasons why in many organizations we wind up designing them out. Now remember, I don't do these things. I just say, what if you did this, what would happen? And that's the way you kind of have to take some of the things that organizations do, and usually it saves them a lot of time. They don't have to do the performance appraisals, those types of things. But it's a way of controlling, again, things like performance appraisals. So there's a lot of different ways to use fear in an organization. But again, just like competition, fear is kind of the other side of that bad coin of things that you can do to employees. And I've heard many, especially a lot of the boomer age people like myself will say, well, a little fear, gets them motivated. Type of thing. Well, you have an awful system typically when you go to look and see what they're doing, and people gnashing about at each other. It's just a very poor organization to work in. Fifth thing, it's always about your idea and your decision only. Now, I want to emphasize only because the hierarchy still exists in organizations, even though many try to deny that it exists. But you should be able to defend your position at a minimum, which I don't think is actually a very good way to go about things. But to listen to employees' ideas first, as opposed to here's what we're going to do. If it has to come later, it can. But you're not growing your organization. You're not making an organization that can take and absorb a lot of different things that can happen to it, customer changes, those types of things. You're building compliant people within your organization, and if that's what you want, that's awesome. My system will be awful for you because it's about decisions being made by employees and making them better to help make better decisions. Now, close to that, the sixth thing is create barriers versus remove barriers. And this can go back to the scripts and the measures and things of that sort, where there's barriers between either departments or people or whatever, and it gets kind of feeds into the competition thing, but it's more creating barriers between, or you can't, that's Bill's area or that's Sue's area, and we don't want to step on anybody's feet. It's all one organization, and I have often said that an organization is treated as one thing by a customer. It doesn't care about your departments or your teams or whatever else you got. They're trying to get some value from your organization, and a lot of executives put up these barriers, and a lot of them are artificial. Well, we don't step on their area, or we don't allow people to get into our IT system, because if that happens, there's going to be big trouble, type of thing. And so executives wind up putting up more barriers to good service in organizations, as opposed to remove them to make the system run better. And sometimes you have to sacrifice, and I talked about this over and over again, but not everybody. A good system is not run by 100 or 500 or 1,000 prima donnas all fighting to get recognition. It's run by the cooperation of people working together. Seventh thing, you fail to build an innovation pipeline. There is no new things coming in. Now, how excited would you be to come in every day if you knew things were never going to change? Things change all the time. I mean, that's one of the things that I've seen in my career, is that it has actually sped up there's constant innovation, and there's constantly somebody looking to do something better than somebody else. And when they find it, they've got a whole business. So if you aren't looking, and it doesn't guarantee that you're going to win, even if you have one, but you've got to be looking out there for better ways to provision services, to come up with new products, to come up with new services. And there's a proactive need to be able to build that pipeline. If you're reactive, you're too late. You're going to get slaughtered. And I love slaughtering I'll have to admit, when I work with organizations, I love to slaughter the competition, type of thing. I do like to grow the pie for the whole industry, but, if people that were on top, when they get knocked off of it, it's often too late for them to react at that point. And so coming up with an innovation pipeline helps you at least be looking for those types of things. The eighth thing, you fail to develop, employees' skills. And, it goes beyond just training for your job. It's developing skills around things that you're interested in, maybe getting to the next level. I conducted over the years a lot of executive training, coaching, those types of things. And there are ways that let me put it this way. There's a lot of organizations out there that won't pay for training that doesn't have anything to do with their job. And I think that's a huge mistake. And the reason I do is because when you get into things like creativity and innovation and looking at things differently, any new skill you get will expand your mind into different possibilities, things you've never thought of before. And so I'm always a proponent of organizations, some listen, some don't, if an employee says, I want to be a massage therapist, and I want, will the organization pay for that? If the organization is a position to do so, I do it. You get insights into the job. You also become an employer that people want to work for too. They do right by the people that work in the organization. And a lot of these 8 things, reasons you may suck as being an executive, have to do kind of with the actions that you take to develop the empathy, rather than just saying the words or being nice to people, or I'm sorry you lost your job, but get out of here, type of an attitude. So anyway, that's what I wanted to cover this week. And just remember that there is always a better way.